And this is Kay Fisher. And Kay and I are both instructors here at Laney in the Ethnic Studies Department. Kay and I also are both the teachers for a new program that just launched here at Laney College, the Community Change Studies program. The Community Change Studies program is, again, it just launched this semester. I believe we have around 25 students in our new cohort, and the mission and purpose pretty much behind the program is to help people or young adults in this community, in the Oakland community, surrounding Bay Area, develop skills as leaders, advocates, and folks who are just really about creating change in their community. Kay and I actually met in graduate school about 4 years ago now, and she and I both were at San Francisco State, and I was doing my master's in ethnic studies, and Kay was getting her master's in Asian American studies, and we had a class together our first semester, and we've been great friends since. So it's a little more than coincidence that we both ended up here in this program. I believe in fate and that the universe is working in our favor. And so, because it has been a blessing working with her. But I just want to give you guys just a little bit of history around San Francisco State, because without those programs, she and I would not be standing here before you, wouldn't be able to teach these classes I was teaching or put together events like this. So for those of you who don't know, San Francisco State University is the only university in the country with a school of ethnic studies or a college of ethnic studies. And that school, that College of Ethnic Studies was birthed out of the 1968-69 strike for Black Studies that took place at San Francisco State. So the Black Studies Department that was founded at San Francisco State was the first in the country, and the School of Ethnic Studies is also still the first in the country. But there are many Black study programs now throughout our nation and around the world. And so again, without those students back in 68, 69, and I believe it started earlier in the 60s than that, out there mobilizing and coming together in realization that Black studies, ethnic studies, Chicano studies, Asian American studies, that these programs were important to our communities, to our people, and it was also essential to us just developing and moving forward in this country, for us to know our history, to know the struggles we've been through, the triumphs, and all those things that make us who we are. So again, without that program, she and I wouldn't be standing here, and none of this would be taking place. So coming full circle, the Community Change Studies program is just another kind of break off of that whole struggle back in the 60s. I'm sorry. There's two classes. I was trying to see what was next. Two classes that our cohort is required to take this semester, which was Introduction to Ethnic Studies, which Kay Fisher teaches, and I got the opportunity to teach AFRAM 16, which is the prison industrial complex, and how it impacts African Americans, how mass incarceration impacts African Americans. So again, I feel like this was just fate. I did my research in school around how Black men in the West Oakland community perceive the impact of crack cocaine on our community. And in doing that research, I found that all the men in my study felt like one of the biggest impacts was the excessive policing and the criminalization of the Black men. And so me getting a chance to teach this class, I was like so juiced, I was so excited. So I am very happy to see all of you. We welcome you. We really hope that you take away something from this panel, and we're also here to highlight these wonderful people who you have here. They're going to introduce themselves in a minute. And all of these people sitting before you are people who are in the trenches. They are advocates, they are crusaders, they are leaders in this movement against mass incarceration, this thing called the prison industrial complex that we know is impacting a lot of our communities. So I'm not going to talk any longer, and I'm going to hand the mic over to them. And we only have one mic, so bear with us. I'm going to hand the mic over to them, and they're all going to begin introducing themselves. So welcome. Thank you. This is a much bigger turnout than we expected, I have to say. We really appreciate all of you taking your time out and joining us tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Harrison. Thank you.
My name is Nelson Sauna. I work with APSC, the Asian Prisoner Support Committee. Our goal mainly is to bridge that gap between the community and the incarcerated community. So we work within the prison, San Quentin and Solano mainly, to run workshops and also to make connections between the community out here and them. So run the reentry portion of it. At 17, I was tried as an adult for a violent crime and was sentenced to 17 to life at 17. Ended up serving 21 years. One of the first things I realized when I got to Golden Bay at 18 years old was that my community wasn't very different from the community that was in there. I was just more concentrated, the gangs, drugs, violence. And so, I began to realize like the prison actually began to be constructed out in my community, right? She told me that you guys read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, and she really highlights it there and how how the prison industrial complex is not just a facility, right? It's an idea. It's perception. It's how we view people, and we actually participate in that. And so my part is reaching out to the community and looking at how we participate in that. Like unknowingly, how do we participate in the prison industrial complex? By our own biases, by whatever racism that we may hold, by cultural misunderstandings that we have of other people, and how we reinforce that system of power, right? And so, my goal is to always try to bridge that gap, not only for the community and incarcerated community, but also between our own communities out here, right? Our own differences that sort of keep us from working together out here, because the prison industrial complex affects everyone. And as a Samoan, in Oakland and Alameda County, you have some of the highest rates of incarceration for specifically Samoan young males, right? And so the same systems that Michelle Alexander talks about affects like my community as well, and it also affects some Southeast Asian communities. Look at how she says it applies to African Americans historically, and look how it's beginning to be used in other communities as well, impoverished communities, right? And so I know like there's a common goal across our communities, and so my goal is always to reach out. And as a former lifer, I come from a community of other former lifers who go beyond the color lines in a lot of ways. And so that's where I start my work, right, within my community as well, right there, because we do outreach work in every community from East Bay all the way down to LA to Central California. So
my loyalties, I'm Tongan American. My loyalty is our greeting. It's to say thank you, brothers and sisters, for bringing your goodness, or bringing yourselves and your families, and in return, I also hope to reciprocate that, to also reciprocate the goodness that you bring with you. I want to acknowledge Talofa Lava and Alofa Tele to my Samoan brother. So much love and respect for you, Harrison. Such a blessing to be on a panel with you. I also want to acknowledge and I want to thank the my many Ohlone Native American brothers and sisters who are also here, the Native people of this land. Because even though we as Pacific Islanders are also indigenous people, but we're also settlers in this land. So we want to definitely acknowledge the Native people of this land. So I'm very humbled to be here. I think about one of the mothers of indigenous studies, a Maori woman named Linda Tuhiwai Smith. And she says, when you do indigenous work, or what is indigenous work? It's humbling work. That indigenous work is always about humility, and it's humbling work. And brothers and sisters, it's hard for me to extricate or to differentiate what indigenous work is from the work that we do with the brothers and sisters, the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander brothers and sisters that are behind bars. So it's really with great humility that I'm here, and also with these wonderful new brothers and sisters, new cousins, so to speak, that are sitting on this panel here with me tonight, and also for all of you to be here together to have this really important discussion. So I'm really blessed to be part of a Pacific Islander social justice organization called OCNC, and it's wonderful to have Uncle Paul Kealoha Blake, because he's also one of the organizing and founding members of this group. We were founded in 2010, actually, 2009. We're a group, a US-based group here in California. We were founded actually in response to a lot of violence that was happening to our brothers and sisters in the Pacific, specifically in the island of Rapa Nui, against the Chilean government. What happened is that us here in the US, we saw these poignant pictures of violence, right, against the Chilean army, the genocide against our people, the taking of the lands. For example, listening to one of the stories by Santi Hitorangi, one of the main activists, tell a story that he would wake up in the middle of the night and the police would be at his door, at all their doors, right, not just his door, at about 3 or 2 a.m. And this was a normal ritual of the military knocking at the door and taking the men and the boys out, beating them, right, taking their lands and also telling them to move. The militarization. And these photos of violence, what it did is it resonated with those of us Pacific Islanders who lived here in California. And we came together, which is unprecedented, because as many of you know, it's really difficult for us, because of our own colonization, to work together as a Pacific Islander groups, right? Native Hawaiians, Tongans and Samoans. As much as I love my brother Harrison, I mean, in another place and time, Harrison could be my enemy. I say that with a joke, because many of us in our own community, Samoans and Tongans, we don't get along together, right? We also, in our group, we had Antimart, also from Chamorro from Guam. So we had a lot of Pacific Islanders from all over the spectrum working together for a cause that we believed was really right, which was also showing our support for our brothers and sisters back in the Pacific. Because why? Because we believed that we Pacific Islanders here in California were under militarization just like them. And our work in the prison industrial complex is part of the work that also OCNC does. First and foremost, part one, and I'm so sorry, I'm just being like a Tongan here. Our short is like 4 years, guys. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I'm going on indigenous time here. We don't know what this short is. I'm so sorry. But one of the guiding and important goals that we have in OCNC is actually our belief again, is a decolonial belief in our own, first and foremost, in our own autonomy, in our own sovereignty as Pacific Islander people, right? We're one of the most invisible communities here in the United States. And as Harrison just said, actually according to the city of Alameda County, San Francisco County, right, where Pacific Islanders, also a lot of Tongans and Samoans reside, which is in the peninsula, we actually have the highest arrest rate. And also, though we're also a fairly invisible community, right, in the American political landscape, we have one of the highest incarceration rates here in the state of California, right? So this conversation, it's really important that we're here in this conversation, and we thank you so much for including us. Okay, going back to my point, one of the main principles that actually are, and guidelines for OCNC, guiding principles of OCNC, is sovereignty. Sovereignty, our indigenous sovereignty, first and foremost that we're indigenous people. And what that means is that also there's a lot of resistance, right? When I talk about resistance, I think about a young Tongan brother. I think about us, we went to Solano several years ago, and this is part of getting started in the work. When we first saw each other, he recognized me as a Tongan sister. And what he did is in order to enter the space, what he did is he welcomed us with a Tongan chant. Right, amidst all the colonization that both he and I had gone through, we were raised here in America to believe that our Tongan language, right, and our Tongan gods, our own beliefs in our own indigenous communities was wrong. And he sang a Tongan chant to welcome us, and we, there were Tongan Samoans with us, Native Hawaiians, and what we did in return was also to sing a song, a chant in response to thank him for allowing us to be in his space. Brothers and sisters, I tell you this story because what also Mahanga said after that, we continued to sing songs. He told us his story of being a lifer in Solano. Right? He told us his stories, same stories that we both share, poverty, right? There weren't any parents at home because the studies again also show, just like our real life stories, that most Pacific Islanders were seen here in this country as people who don't work, though the statistics show that many of us work 2 or 3 jobs here in this country, yet we also live, 60% of us live below, way below the poverty level, right? So this American dream doesn't exist for us. Mahanga, in our correspondence with Mahanga that day, he said, please sisters, come back, right? Although families mean so much to us in our Pacific Islander community, what happened when I came into prison is my family's so ashamed of me. I haven't seen any family members for all the years that I've been here. You're the first friendly Pacific Islander face that I have seen in years. And then in our communication with them, he also said, when you come, I want you to help us. I want us to sing. I want us to remember our Pacific Islander chants that we were taught to forget, that we were taught to be ashamed of. And in his response, he also said, sisters, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. But this is by learning our own indigenous belief systems again, the ones that we were taught to be ashamed of, by learning our own gods, by interacting in the ways that we know, our ancient ways, the ways of our own people. This is what he said in his own words. He said, this is the way to return back home. So perhaps, in closing, that is the goal of OCNC, is to find our way back home.
Peace and love to all of you. I'd like to open giving thanks to all the Native American people who died and are living and are continuing to resist by holding on to their traditions. And it wouldn't be me if it wasn't for we. And right now, like anybody who's been formerly incarcerated, raise their hand. Can we give a clap for everybody who's formerly incarcerated? Thank you for surviving our prison system. Thank you. I also have to give tribute. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for a few comrades holding me up. Bo and at least long-time activists, long-time revolutionaries who have been continually fighting through sickness, through working and everything, but continue to fight for people. My name is Ida Craig. I am also formerly incarcerated, and I was born into prison because I was born right here in San Francisco, California, and I returned to San Francisco, California because I have to continue, I have to do what I need to, I have to continue the struggle of doing what I can, where I can, and helping myself and others to remove the barriers. I'm really happy about this time because even though you're talking about, it's more people becoming incarcerated, and I see more people find themselves that they're not white. It's more people in the pot that we can get together, just remove the barriers of what separates us. And what's separating us is that things that they put in our mind that we're different. There's more poor people now in this capitalism than ever before in history. And for that, we have an opportunity to continue to remove fighting, this inner fighting, internalized colonialism, internalized racism, all these things that separate us as human beings, and continue to fight and organize and resist and educate ourselves and have access. We don't have to come to university to have access to education. My daddy didn't learn how to read until he was 29 years old. From Louisiana, he couldn't read. They grow up and eating potatoes, and we got all kind of stories of poor people thriving and continuing to live, but we've got to remember and go back, like you're saying, sister, go back home. Go back home to the Mitra. Let's organize, let's get together, and let's kick this system down.
Hi, it's never fair to have to follow Ida on a panel. But anyway, I'm doing my best. Okay. So my name is Donna Wilmot, and I also am really grateful to be here. Looking out and seeing all your beautiful faces and thinking that this wouldn't have happened 10 years ago or maybe even 5 years ago. And it's a testament to the work of your teachers here, and it's a testament to a growing movement against the prison system. And so one of the reasons I'm here tonight is because I'm part of the prison Hunger Strike Solidarity Committee, and I want to acknowledge that there are some brothers here in the room, probably some I don't know, but there's Steve Zifra and there's Danny Murillo, people who were survivors of solitary at Pelican Bay who have been an integral part of the work of bringing the message of the hunger strikers to the community and organizing people to stand up and support them. And I just want to acknowledge them as well as any other warriors in the room. I was glad to have the question of what is resistance posed, because this is a time, as Ida and other people were saying, where we need a spirit of resistance more than maybe than we've needed in a long time in this country. And when I think of resistance, I want to back up and think about what prison is, because I'm thinking about resistance in the context of prisons. And prisons in this country they come out of white settler colonialism, they come out of the genocide of Native people, they come out of slavery, directly out of slavery. And if we want to think about resistance, we have to think about, what prisons are about. And prisons are about social control. Prisons are about crushing the human spirit. They're about trying to destroy your spirit and your ability to resist. So I think there's a lot of ways that people resist in prison. And there are small ways, they're like small day-to-day ways, and then there's like really big ways. Like I think the prison hunger strike is where, recently in California, prisoners in solitary fasted for 60 days and to try to bring an end to this really inhumane form of punishment, of solitary confinement indefinitely. And, if you could just think about for a minute what it would be like to not eat for 60 days, what kind of discipline, what kind of commitment, what kind of love for your community you would have to do that. And there were 30,000 people who started out on that hunger strike, and we haven't ever seen anything like that in California. I think, to me that's like one of those big historic collective actions, or the Attica Prison Rebellion in 1971, where prisoners took over their prison and demanded decent medical care, demanded education, demanded an end to the brutality by the guards. And that was an incredibly courageous action that meant that 43 people died. Those are those like kind of big historic acts of resistance that we can look at as part of the long chain and a long tradition of people standing up for their rights. And then there's also like the everyday kind of acts of resistance, which I think are not to be minimized. And by that I think about if you're in prison and you're in a system that doesn't want you to be educated, if you decide you're gonna learn, you're gonna learn your history, you're gonna recover your language, you're gonna learn whatever thing will make you a fuller human being, that's an act of resistance, because that system, just like under slavery where slaves were not allowed to be educated, to defy that system and say, I'm going to learn, that's an act of resistance. I think, for people who don't snitch on other people, that's an act of resistance, because in California prisons, the main way you get out of solitary confinement is if you give the name of somebody else. And for those people who refuse to do that, that's like a daily act of resistance, of just refusing to bow down. People resist by writing grievances against the system. People bring lawsuits, and those things are very costly and mean that you get retaliated against. And you have to have a lot of courage to do that. I think there's like a lot of ways that people resist. in Dublin, California, and Marilyn Buck was a political prisoner who did almost 30 years in prison because of her commitment to the Black liberation movement, to the Puerto Rican movement, to many, many other social justice movements. But she was like somebody who was really dear to me. And I remember one morning, I mean, she'd been in prison like over 20 years by the time I met her. And, you know, one morning I was having breakfast with her and I said, I don't know how we do it, you know, like, and she said, well, one thing I do is I decide that every day I'm gonna do something against the rules, however small it is. Like, you know, you're not allowed to walk in the grass, I walk in the grass. You're not allowed to bring food out of the kitchen, I bring food out of the kitchen. She says, every day I tell myself I have to do one thing to remind myself that they don't own me. They don't own my spirit. They might have my body, but they do not have my spirit. So I think about that because I think refusing to let the prison system in whatever manifestation it presents to us, refusing to let it have our minds, whether we're inside or outside, is really important. And you know, people before me have talked about decolonizing our minds. And you know, for me, you know, so I'm not in prison anymore, so I have to find my ways to resist the system in the free world, in the quote so-called free world. And to me, that really means kind of the bottom line is not acquiescing to the idea that the prison system as it stands now is inevitable, that we're going to always have to have this, that this is the way we're going to solve social problems, that it's something that can't be challenged. Just like, you know, if you think about, you know, when slavery was dominant in this country, there were a lot of people who just thought, this is how it's got to be. You know, we can't do it any other way. And I think that first step of just saying no, refusing to accept that as a reality that is unchangeable. And I think to do that, it means supporting the people inside, the prisoners inside, who are taking great risks to change this unjust system. I think it means supporting families on the outside and communities. And, you know, as Harrison was saying, you know, like the prison kind of starts in the community. So, you know, like whether somebody tries to get me to join a neighborhood watch that I know is racist, and I have to say, I'm not going to do that, but then I have to try to find some other model, like how can I build a community that's not based on a white supremacist fear of people of color. And how do I stand, you know, like testify at the city council against a curfew that's only a youth curfew that's only gonna sweep up more and more young people of color into the system? Or how do I stand up against the gang injunctions? Or, you know, like there's all these ways that the prison system grabs us and tries to grab our hearts and minds. And so I think that, you know, saying no to that and saying, okay, there's got to be other ways we can do this, and doing the hard day-to-day work to create other models. And I've been talking too long. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Hello, my name is Marie Levin, and I am a part of the Prisoner Hunger Strike Solidarity Coalition, as well as Donna. And I have a brother who's incarcerated at Pelican Bay State Prison. He's been incarcerated for 32 years, in solitary for 29 years. And of those 29 years, 23 has been at Pelican Bay in the SHU. Yeah, that is a woo. So, my brother's fight, how I got involved, I think the second question was resistance, and what does it mean to resist? Resistance is something that, before I go there, let me say this. The coalition is made up of family members, formerly incarcerated activists and lawyers. And all of us together, we work together to fight, to make change. One of the things that we're doing right now, and Donna spoke a lot about some of the things I was going to mention about, which is the hunger strike, which is good because we're, you know, you guys got a chance to hear it. I don't need to repeat it. But we're going down to Sacramento, and we're approaching the legislators, and we're speaking to them about making change and making new laws. So we're in the process of working toward making that change through the legislation, because we realize, well, we should realize that a lot of change happens down in Sacramento. The laws that that the legislators put out there, or that the lobbyists put out there, and the legislators agree to, we have sat back quietly and with no resistance accepted it.
Right.
With no resistance, we accepted what was taking place. And it's time for us now. I'm so happy to be a part of what you are doing here tonight, because the word has to get out there. It has to be told to everybody. Now, I can't remember, I think it was Ida that asked for a show of hands of all those who were incarcerated and those formerly incarcerated, you know. So here you have a few people in the room, or many people in the room. Even if you didn't raise your hand, you may know of someone. You may have a family member who has been incarcerated. And what are we gonna do? That's the question. What are we going to do? Because the people that are inside, they've done what they can do, which is to resist by going on the hunger strike for 60 days. And as she said, how could you go on a, you know, I call it a fast. How could you do that for 60 days and, you know, and hold up under the pressure that they're under? They managed to do it, and we're willing to go even longer than that. So resistance is fighting back, is not allowing yourself to accept what is. How do I resist? I'm resisting by locking arms with my brother and my sister. Okay, that's how I'm resisting. I'm resisting in the fact that they say that we can't lock arms. Okay, but I'm saying that we can. And so, what does resistance mean to me? Let's work together. Let's work together and make a change in this system. And truly, it may seem like years ago things have been, we can look back on years ago and things seem like they have not changed. But every little thing that piles on top of each other, it counts for something. But we have to not be silent. I think that's our worst enemy, is being silent. And we really have to be a big voice. I believe that the family members and the formerly incarcerated is a big, huge group of people. There are, how many people, Donna, you may have the figures of prisoners that are incarcerated in the 33 prisons?
Like 150,000, something like that. Yeah, way too many.
So with all of those prisoners, imagine all of the people that are connected to them. So if that 150 people times just five people, five family members, it's so, I'd have to get my calculator out. That's how many people it is that we could work together and make change. I believe that if we marched down to Sacramento as a group and stayed down there until they made some change, something would happen. Governor Jerry Brown would have to come out of that office and say, would y'all please go home? Something would happen. But we have to be willing to come out of our comfort zones. We have to be willing to come out of our hiding places, because a lot of us are doing this. A lot of us are hiding. A lot of us, like was spoken, are ashamed. My mother was ashamed. She didn't want us to tell nobody about what happened to my brother. Hush, hush. Don't you tell my business. Don't you? I mean, I don't know how it is today, but when my brother got locked up in 1981, that's how it was then. And so what I'm saying is, we all need to stand up and make a difference. And really stick together, which is total resistance. If we stick together, because they don't expect for us to stick together. They don't want us to stick together. When the guys put out a letter in 2012 to resist, in hostilities against all of the races inside, they put that out in the streets as well. They wanted the gangs to stop. They came together to do that. Something that the guards weren't even willing to do. Yeah, that's right. They're the ones that they perpetuate the very thing. The indifferences. Pit them against one another. Treat one better than the other. And so, just because they have control, but it's up to us to make some noise. I am so grateful for my brother and for all the prisoners, those 30,000 prisoners that were numbered, and some of those that weren't even numbered, took the chance on themselves to make a difference in those that are coming behind them. So I just, again, want to thank you for this opportunity, for inviting me to come here tonight, and I look forward to the change that's going to take place in our communities.
Hello everybody, my name is Michael Muscadine. I'm fifth generation of Oakland. I work with Courage, that's Community United for Restorative Justice. I met Nicole at a group. I helped co-facilitate with Ruben and George and Corey with young men there teaching Rasa studies, Native American history. So they're excited when we came to school. Now, Dewey got it going on, man, with all types of different programs. Like, I was excited to go there, and the youngsters were excited for us to come in because they said they always getting taught black and brown, black and white history, but never where they came from. It was like, where's our history at? We got a lot of history. So when we came in, it was all excited. So, the work we do, Courage, we do a lot of local work and statewide work. So we like the gang injunctions, stop and frisk, the curfews, what they just try to bring in the fruit belt and all around Oakland. We go against all that because it don't work. Statistics-wise, it shows it don't work in New York. Gang injunctions do not work in Los Angeles, and it's just locking folks up by the hundreds of thousands. So why are they going to bring this tool that does not work to our city and to our communities and lock folks up? And then when these folks come out of jail 6 months to a year, what's going to happen? It's going to repeat itself, and we just keep repeating ourselves. So the resistance, it's not something you can probably look up in the dictionary. It's not the same resistance. The resistance, when I think of resistance, I think of the natives of this country resisting against the U.S. Army coming in and taking over their land and keep on resisting till there was no more left. Right. So that's the resistance I look at, and I look at it as OPD, the city of Oakland, coming into our communities now, telling us what is right for us when they don't even live in that community. So how are they gonna tell us what gang injunctions are right when their mom and dad or their nephews are not on a gang injunction or a curfew? So this is my resistance, is like, enough was enough to me.
Right.
I always was told by my grandfather when I was younger, you know, about like all the civil rights movements was going on in Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco. The folks that he had worked with, farm workers, the Brown Berets, Black Panthers. So it was always there. That seed was planted into me at a young age. But you know, I wanted to run the streets. But then was enough when I just started seeing all this at home, and I was like, damn, this shit is real. You start learning. You gotta learn your history, and that's what a lot of folks don't learn. They don't know the politics behind this. It's not, or we want to decrease crime. We all want to say, you think I want to wash my back when I walk out the door? No, I want to walk down the street and feel cool. But then again, it's not the gangs I'm afraid of, it's the police. Because I had 7 officers pull up on me one time, and they were shaking when they were handcuffing me. And I was like, whoa, what's going on, officer? He said, because you're a gang member. I was like, but there's 7 of you guys. He said, you can shoot all 7 of them. So that really, like, put my guard up on the system. I was like, damn, whatever they're told downtown is like, these guys ain't right over here in the neighborhood. Take all procedures on snatching these guys up. So the resistance, I've been just doing this work right here, just curfews, gang injunctions, hiring more police. It's not gonna work. Crime's gonna go up. It's about bringing jobs and opportunities. And I wanna thank like nonprofits like Courage by giving me a job, because you know, it's easy to go out there and sell dope. It's easy to go rob somebody, but what is that? That's going back, feeding the cycle, and just, you know, it's easy, man. So I'm just really happy that George and other folks, like all of us around, took me under their wing when the gang injunction came. And those, like, just sparked me to resist and rebel against the system, but it's not working. It's always failing. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Yeah, my name is Roberto, and this right here, the Mike he just spoke, that's my comrade and childhood friend. And something he failed to say is we're both defendants in the Fruit Belt gang injunction here in the Fruit Belt. So we know about the criminalization of our neighborhoods and being attacked, basically being attacked by the police and the city. And like he said, like when the gang injunction hit here, the Fruit Belt, and when it hit, and you know everybody was calling us sociopaths, street terrorists. It was folks like these folks right here. You see in this panel, and folks like the people that are out here in the audience, the ones that came out and supported us. So the city, the police department. All they wanted to do was just basically label us and basically try to lock us up. It was folks like you guys and folks like people on this panel that came out and actually supported us and basically, you know, showed us our potential and nurtured us. And this is the reason that we are here. And we're here to prove also that you know, locking us up, you know, that wasn't going to do nothing for us. You know, we need people to believe in our young people and give us opportunity to find that untapped potential, you know. And yeah, what resistance to me means a lot of things, you know. Like I would like to tell everybody here in this room, you know, like when you guys go home tonight and you have that loved one that's behind the walls, you know, sit down and take an hour of the day and just write them a letter. Yes. Tell them about this event today. Tell them about a funny joke that happened to you down the street. Talk to them about anything, just to show them that we still love them and they're not forgotten. Because folks that have been in that position, that have been behind the walls, know how important it is when your folks look right to you. And Like when you're in there and you get a letter, man, that's like, whew, man, you be like, oh, hell yeah. You know, somebody send you some pictures, oh, no, man, you're going to be looking at the pictures like 100 times, over and over. So I would just like to tell everybody, you know, that could be your form of resistance, you know? Just show our loved ones behind the walls that we still love them, we still here for them, you know? Another form that me and Mikey resisted, you know, with this gang junction here in Fruitvale, like we're like, nah, fuck that shit, you know, we're not all this stuff they talking about us, you know, like maybe when I was younger I was doing that, but like at the time when the gang junction hit, I wasn't doing that. I was taking care of my family back there, you know. I was trying to come here to Laney. So when me and him did, you know, we got together with our lawyers and our allies, and we started this Islam beautification movement, which is to help beautify our neighborhood, because we seen that in the Fruitvale, you know, there's not a lot of murals like there is in San Francisco and East Los Angeles and San Diego. So me and him came together with the support of Eastside Arts Alliance, and we hooked up our neighborhood with some murals. And this was before like everybody started jumping on this mural bandwagon like right now. You know, like all of a sudden all these people trying to hit up murals and stuff. But like we're actually from the Fruitvale, you know. We have a vested interest in the Fruitvale, and we wanted to put up art and culture. But yeah, man, another form of resistance is, you know, just solidarity and just coming together between, you know, different, just building those bridges, you know. And I feel like we all gotta learn our own history. If we learn our own history, if I learn my history, this brother right here knows his history, we can see, you know, that we have a common oppressor, common struggle, and then that's when we can come together. But yeah, man, I just want to thank everybody again for being here, and I'm passing the mic, you know, because all the time.
Okay. How's everybody doing? My name is Peralta, and I'm with this local group called the Black Organizing Project, BOP. I'm a youth/staff organizer, and my definition of resistance is the same as everyone's here, but what I'm going to say is fighting against oppression, because we know what is right and what's wrong, but we finally finna step up and say we ain't taking no more BS. Okay, now, and how I got into this line of work. But before I even say that, I'm going to tell you how, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I graduated high school at Ralph J. Bunch in 2010. That same summer I graduated, one of my friends was murdered and killed, shot to death in cold blood. Upon that, I read on the news that there was going to be a peace rally up here at our Oakland Coliseum. Upon me going to that, I ran into my organization that I'm working with now, the Black Organizing Project. Okay, upon me going to this organization, I became a full-fledged member doing outstanding volunteer work. And then I'll say, next year come, March of next year, I get incarcerated at the age of 18. The crime was a robbery that I did not commit. I know who did commit it, but since, like Miss Donna was saying, I resisted by not snitching. Okay, now, I spent my last 4.5 months in Santa Rita County Jail, aka Auntie Rita House. I was 18 years old at the time, fresh 18. Okay, upon my return from jail, from the county jail, I had seen that my organization had did this work, had came up with a campaign called BOSS, so it's better in our school system. The point of that campaign is to get the school police out of our elementary, middle, and high schools. Because we had found an outstanding discovery that one of these school police officers had shot and killed a man in cold blood up to the side on heels for no reason. No, but yet his reason was that he resisted. shot and killed him in cold blood. Okay, now upon that, a few months later, we launched our campaign, Better in Our School System. And upon us doing that, we also implemented a complaint policy specifically for those school police officers who's abusing or antagonizing our students. Okay, now after that got passed, I had a job to do, which was monitoring our schools, our OUSD schools from K through 12, to see if our policy was posted in the main office, because the OUSD, our school board, had approved of our policy. So it was up to me to go see if these policy postings was posted up in these main office. We found out that the majority was not. The only postings that was posted, the only policy that I found posted up in our schools was the ones at the hills, who don't even have school police officers on their campuses. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now, how do I resist? Is by just being a part of my organization, helping us fight against this, I don't want to say oppression, but fighting against the police officer, period. Getting them out of our schools, getting them out of our atmosphere. I'm also part of this national group called DSC, which is Dignity in Schools. They have a campaign which is the School to Prison Pipeline. I've also been in Sacramento with these two right here, in our coalition with the Boys and Men of Color. We spoke up to the state legislature to show them and tell them the findings we and the harassment we find in our streets that these police officers do, and we want this to stop. Like ASAP, we want this to stop. I would like to say thank you every last one of y'all for telling y'all story. We're telling our story as well. I hope somebody hears this, and I hope somebody make this happen, make this change happen.
We have over 2 million people incarcerated, and if you add up people who are on probation and on parole, it's, I think the numbers are closer to like 7 million people, right, in the United States. We incarcerate more people in the United States than any other country in the world. So this should be a really urgent issue in our public, in our society, but it's not. And so our first question has to do with that. So we wanted to ask you, the panelists, and it's sort of up there if you can see, why do you think there hasn't been more outrage against mass incarceration? And what will spark a mass movement against this?
I think the first part why there hasn't been a mass outrage is because too many people have that damn TV on. Right? They're sitting up there, they're looking at KTVU, young and restless, and they're allowing KTVU to dictate what they should be concerned about and what they shouldn't look at. And the other thing is the other reason is because we've allowed, and people only do what they're allowed to get away with. We've allowed these politicians to constantly kick those who are arrested, who are looking different, and we swallow what the TV is telling us. That TV is not your friend. The politicians are not your friend. You need to get out and start calling liars and stop kicking down the 290s, because everybody's a 290, not a 290. What's that? Those that are convicted for so-called sex crimes, somebody pees. They are the kicking dog. We have to really look at it, because this is, it's not all black and white. Everybody's an individual case. And the other thing is take the whole criminal and justice system and we need restorative justice out of the hands of the cops and the police. Thank you.
I would like to say is, the media, the politicians, a lot of folks don't know the real politics behind these laws that are coming out, what are affecting our folks locked up in the system, and they just see the violence going up and they just go by the ball. There's so many murders in Oakland or in these inner cities. Let's get more cops, let's throw them all in jail. I was like, damn, that's crucial, but these people are coming back out of jail eventually, and they're gonna come back out worse than what they were. So working with them, I know this is just like showing folks a different way, like learning your history and your culture. That's what made me open up my eyes a lot, is learning my traditional Native culture, my Native American culture. And it's a lot of same with African descents and Polynesians, it's all the same, that I believe we all came from the same God, But there's No outrage, because a lot of folks just is blank to it. They just are blind to it, and they're just lazy to me. I just think they don't want to go out there and protest. They don't want to go to City Hall, send them long-ass meetings that our agenda is always last. The gang injunctions, the curfews are always last to talk about, so folks go home. So people are just lazy and just don't want to speak up.
Okay, what I'm gonna say is, I do believe that it is the television too that's sucking the minds up of these folks who want to organize and want to fight back, but just don't know how. But what I also think is this: like, if we was to outrage and just protest, what would that really show? But just them showing, but us showing them that we're just an angry bunch of minorities just marching around. That's not really gonna show that. But what I really want to say, what I'm really getting from what they're saying is we need to educate these folks. Educate them, get their minds on the TV and educate them on minds and flesh. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I want to speak a minute to the question of why we think there hasn't been more outrage against mass incarceration. And when I think about that, I think about the origins of mass incarceration, which to me were a lot in response to the strength of the movements in the 60s and early 70s, the Black Liberation Movement, the American Indian Movement, the Puerto Rican Independence Movement, the Chicano Mexicano Movement, the women's movement, gay liberation movement. All those things were really like totally rocking this society at its roots, and that was the time that we've come closest in a long time to having really fundamental change in this country. And the beginning of the system of mass incarceration as we know it, I think was a lot in response to those social movements. It was really an attempt to say, okay, people are, there's too much of a demand for fundamental change, and we have to like bring things back under control for the people who are running the country. And I think the whole thing about the beginning of a really like super organized racist movement against people of color to criminalize communities of color in a way that really kind of put a lot of us to sleep, I think, for decades. And the fact that a lot of the leaders of those movements were locked up, and a lot of the or driven into exile or killed, that really had a huge effect, and it opened the way to this formation of, to bringing in the drug war as we know it now, and to having these excuses to really try to lock up and control the movements that were the most threatening to the unequal social relationships in this country.